Since the last public board meeting in February, the Oversight Board has been working on the annual revision of the fiscal plans, particularly the fiscal plan for Puerto Rico, and together with the government on the budget for the Commonwealth and the instrumentalities covered under Promesa. Today, we are presenting the fiscal plan for Puerto Rico for your review and certification and your approval to submit the Commonwealth budget to the Legislative Assembly. The taxpayers of Puerto Rico, meanwhile, are receiving or have received a one-time tax rebate in recent weeks based on an agreement between the governor, the legislature, and the Oversight Board. Late last year, we raised concerns about the affordability of a broader permanent tax cut that was passed by the legislature due to the out-year impact and economic uncertainties. But today, I'd like to thank the governor and the legislative leadership for their cooperation to reach an agreement that benefits 150,000 working families who rightly receive their share of Puerto Rico's current economic upswing in a financially responsible way that is without burdening Puerto Rico's finances in the future. Together, the government and the Oversight Board achieved another milestone in the civil service reform that is such a key element to improve government services and provide government employees with more opportunity. I would also like to congratulate the governor for introducing a new government hiring platform that integrates artificial intelligence and skill-based hiring to transform the recruitment of government employees. This is a new and innovative approach that reforms talent acquisition and management processes to ensure that the government has a modern recruitment system to attract and retain the best people with the right skills. The platform uses artificial intelligence to evaluate applicants and employees' full capabilities rather than just focus on their credentials and hierarchy alone, to broaden the talent pool that's working for the government of Puerto Rico. The government and the Oversight Board have also continued to implement the civil service reform at the Puerto Rico Department of Education. So I'd like to thank the Education Secretary, Yanira Raíces Vega, for her commitment to this important initiative and to help the department's employees to grow their careers and learn through improved training. Improving the public's employees' experience is really one step in a department-wide transformation that will spread from the administration to the classrooms and to students receiving a better education. Meanwhile, the Oversight Board stands fully behind the renewable energy policies of Act 17. It is a pillar of this energy transformation. Another pillar is the independent regulator, the Puerto Rico Energy Bureau, or PREB. The Oversight Board received the governor's submission of Act 10 for review as mandated under Promesa. Act 10 prevents PREB from evaluating or making any changes to the Commonwealth's current net metering and energy distribution policy, at least until 2031. But Act 17 and the PREPA Fiscal Plan require that PREB evaluate the program independently this year. And the government, by enacting Act 17, tasked PREB with conducting a study to analyze the benefits associated with the current net metering program. This study would then be subject to public comment, public discussion. Act 10, however, passed without any public hearings, would curtail PREB's independence. And only a regulator free from special interest influence is truly an effective regulator. This was acknowledged by the legislature in the past, and it still should be the policy today. That is why the government must repeal or amend Act 10. Renewable energy, including solar, is in the best public interest, and net metering is an effective way to encourage individual consumers to invest in green energy by making renewable energy more affordable for those benefiting from the program. PREB will decide what policies need to be in place and what rules need to be reviewed to determine the best way to reach our renewable goals in the best interests of all the people of Puerto Rico. If there is a disagreement regarding PREB's policies, there should be space to have a discussion, but we should have that discussion in open based on as much information as possible. Meanwhile, The confirmation hearings for the PREPA Plan of Adjustment have concluded. Years of hard work led us to this crucial point, and I'd like to thank the Oversight Board staff, its legal team, and our experts for the exemplary work to ensure a successful confirmation hearing. And I want to thank you, Professor Skeel, for your testimony and the countless hours that you dedicated to this plan. The plan would reduce more than $10 billion of total claims by almost 80% to the equivalent of $2.6 billion, excluding the pension liabilities. It would save Puerto Rico about $15 billion in principal and interest payments. For 2 weeks, we presented to the U.S. District Court with a roadmap to end PREPA's bankruptcy and evidence to satisfy the requirements for the court to confirm the plan. Professor Skeel, you described the plan as a breakthrough because it is a key to transform Puerto Rico's system so that it can provide reliable electricity. Bondholders who opposed the plan argued that the court should deny confirmation because PREPA could pay creditors more than what the plan proposes. The objecting bondholders still want at least an additional $4 billion. The Oversight Board does not believe that the bondholders understand the severity of such a large burden on the people of Puerto Rico, and we understand what is at stake. Puerto Rico cannot afford more than what this plan provides. We hope that the court will approve the plan so that PREPA can leave its bankruptcy behind and we can continue the transformation of Puerto Rico's energy system to provide more reliable and cleaner energy. With the conclusion of the confirmation hearings for PREPA and our hope that the plan of adjustment will conclude the period of debt restructuring, the Oversight Board has taken a fresh look at the fiscal plan for Puerto Rico and how we best can complete our work to fulfill all of PROMESA's mandates. It is important to remember that prior to PROMESA, for each of the first 16 years of this century, from 2000 to 2016, government spending exceeded government revenues. Every year, government operated at a deficit. Every year, controls and guardrails, to the extent that they existed, were insufficient to prevent overestimation of revenues, excessive borrowing, overspending, and the deficits that eroded Puerto Rico's economic stability. Before PROMESA, government pensions were not sufficiently funding, putting pension payments for current and future retirees at risk. As a result of these practices, the consolidated Commonwealth's outstanding debt and pension liabilities had grown to over $120 billion, with more than $70 billion in financial debt and more than $50 million in pension liabilities, an amount that's almost twice the size of Puerto Rico's economy. Now, Puerto Rico has come a long way. The government of Puerto Rico and the Oversight Board together have made significant progress in achieving fiscal responsibility, stabilizing Puerto Rico's finances, substantially reducing its debt burden, and making significant strides to reform its civil service. Today, Puerto Rico is stable and the Commonwealth government is solvent. Fiscal responsibility, however, is more than completing the debt restructuring and stabilizing the finances for Puerto Rico. The method to achieve fiscal responsibility requires policies and permanent reforms, specific defined practices. It requires discipline and continuity. Restructuring Puerto Rico's debt was the first step in achieving fiscal responsibility. It is not enough to declare the recovery completed. To complete our mandate, sound fiscal management practices must be accepted and implemented over the long term. The new practices must become permanent, not just because the Oversight Board is here, but because that is the way to properly manage the finances of the government. All in all, the government must believe that these reforms are necessary. Puerto Rico must not fall backwards. The stability must turn into recovery. The government will also need to execute targeted investments and implement profound structural reforms to produce sustainable growth, support government revenues, and prevent debt-financed operating expenditures. The fiscal plan we present today defines the path to complete the journey from bankruptcy to prosperity and to reverse the decades of fiscal mismanagement. Only completing this path will lead Puerto Rico to sustainable economic growth and opportunity for the people of Puerto Rico, opportunity right here in Puerto Rico. So today we are also presenting the central government budget for the fiscal year 2025 that we plan to submit to the Legislative Assembly for consideration and vote. The success of the government and the Oversight Board in stabilizing Puerto Rico's budget and the economic growth following COVID-19 pandemic lifted by the stimulus from the federal government will enable the government to increase spending by 3% in the coming fiscal year. The surplus enables us together to invest in the areas where resources are needed most, particularly health, education, but also to strengthen Puerto Rico's foundation to achieve fiscal and financial responsibility and economic growth. The stability that we have achieved together will allow the government to increase spending for the recruitment of additional social workers and technicians for the elderly program, to continue the civil service reform expansion, to make repairs in public schools, and for the centers for minors and victims of sexual aggression, and for the recruitment of paramedics and dispatchers, amongst others, as proposed by the governor. The Oversight Board agreed to the government's proposal to increase funding for the Department of Education, the Department of Health, and the Puerto Rico Police Department. We hope that the Legislative Assembly will pass for the governor to sign a compliant budget with the fiscal plan as required under Promesa. It is imperative that the two chambers continue to pass compliant budgets and that spending remains within the budget throughout the fiscal year. Only then can the Oversight Board fulfill its statutory mandate under Promesa.